Welcome to O's Across the Pond, the show covering all things Baltimore Orioles, but from a fresh European perspective. Join us for the highs, the lows, the heartbreaks, and everything in between. Whether you're a die-hard fan or just discovering Birdland, this is your home for passionate, across-the-pond Orioles talk. Let's dive in.
Welcome back to another episode of O's Across the Pond. Tonight, it's a very special episode. We are joined by Tom from Mets in the UK. We're going to talk through the upcoming series, obviously the Mets at Camden Yards. So, Tom, thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to this.
So, we'll just start off. Why the Mets?
I fell in love with the Mets. I went to New York in 2015 for the first time. Like, always wanted to go. I'd seen baseball before, like early 2000s when it was on Channel 5. I don't know if any of your listeners remember those good old days. I remember seeing actually like Barry Bonds, amongst many others, just raking home runs and thinking baseball was cool. But I never really got into it till like 2015. I went when the Mets had just beaten the Cubs in the NLCS, just before they joined the World Series that year. Yeah. I fell in love with the team. Like I love an underdog. That Mets team were really great. They were fun to watch. I've always hated the Yankees, which I'm sure go down well with your listeners.
Neutral.
And yeah, when I was over there, just fell in love with the Mets, and I haven't looked back since. Actually, I love a good underdog. I realize these days we're less of an underdog than we were back then. But yeah, still love the team 10 years on.
Yeah, significant financial backing. Which I think some would it would be fair to say there has been a bit of trolling across teams from the league before about obviously the amount of money being spent in the results. You spent money in the off season bringing in Juan Soto from the Yankees who's a free agent. What did you think of that when that deal happened, and how do you what do you think of his performance so far this season?
Obviously, I was delighted. Like, who wouldn't want Juan Soto in his prime? I think we did well to get him. I'm delighted with the signing. I think the next 15 years are going to be interesting. Whether he can see out that time as a Met remains to be seen. There's a couple of opt-outs in the deal, from what I'm aware of. But, he seems happy. He's got a smile on his face. He's playing well. The Soto shuffle, although it wasn't there at the start of the season, he's playing with a smile on his face. He's bonded well with the rest of the team. Performance-wise, it was a really slow start to the year. We talked about this before the show. Like he had his quote. He was talking about Judge and how he was pitched differently this year compared to last year when he was with the Yankees. I think he's struggled to adjust to Citi Field. He's not got that porch he's had to aim for when he was at Yankee Stadium. So it has been harder for him. He's had to find other areas of the ground to go to. He obviously had an amazing June, won National League Player of the Month. So he is getting back to where he should be. I think a lot of the criticism that's unfairly been thrown at him from Mets fans, in the States, not from us in the UK. Seems like they seem to have expected us to have signed like prime Barry Bonds, and that's not who Juan Soto is. That's not the kind of player he is. And I think there's a lot of our fan base that misunderstood what he brings to the team. And I think they're now starting to see that and appreciate it for what it is. I think he's probably a 7.5 or an 8 out of 10 on his performances. I think the best is still yet to come this year from him. Overall, I'm pretty happy with the signing. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, well, he's a fantastic player. I can remember when the Padres traded for him from the Nationals, and you're thinking, where's this come from? And he was a special player at the Nationals, and he's just got everywhere he's gone in his career since has been fantastic. I, like many others possibly in the AL East, were extremely glad to see the back of him. Also, I was extremely happy with the fact that the Yankees actually thought they had a shot of him signing there long term. I think it was pretty clear early on that he was only ever going to be in pinstripes for the season. do you think that I mean, I haven't looked into the contract. What are the opt-outs? Do you think that, he's going to be there for 15 years? I mean, you don't know if he's going to fall off a cliff, or could you see that happening?
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, the opt-outs, it's not for like at least 5 years. I think I want to say it's like 5 and 10, the opt-outs. I believe there's penalties as well. So if the Mets buy him out, like effectively, like they've got a penalty to pay there. I don't know, because it's one of those, like, you can never say never with this kind of stuff. I think if we go 5 years without really contending for a World Series, I think that question might be asked. When I say contending, I mean like actually making it to a World Series, because that'll be a big step for us. Although we've not made it since the 2015 series, we've kind of come close, but I don't think close is going to be good enough for him, because he's a winner and he wants to win World Series. So I don't really know whether that's going to happen or not. I'd like him to stay as a Met, obviously, but who knows? Who knows? What do you think?
I'm in awe of him as a baseball player. I've said this reluctantly. I've said this about Aaron Judge as well, and I don't like saying it. I like Aaron Judge. I just can't stand the fact he plays for the Yankees. I think it's just nice to kind of be present in an era where there's so many generational talents. Well, look, Shohei Ohtani is just. He's the runaway MVP. He can do it, both. He can do it on the mound. He can do it at the plate. He's out. I just enjoy watching players play outstanding baseball. Juan Soto fits into that bracket, but I also he is a winner. I think he'll do whatever he can to help the Mets take that next step and win a World Series. But I do agree with your sentiment that if there's a barren run where they're not making playoffs or they're not making a World Series and having a crack at it, there might be obviously the decision to make with the penalties and opt-outs. That could be something that happens. But the Mets, anyone who has Juan Soto is a better team, but the Mets are a better team and clubhouse with Juan Soto, because he just brings that winning mentality, if that makes sense. Even though he hasn't won anything, he brings the mentality of winning, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, I get exactly what you mean. Yeah, we've seen that's been something that's been lacking from the clubhouse. So I think, like I was alluding to before, he brings that much more than what he brings on the field. It's the off the field stuff as well. Like, it's the little things, like when there's a break in play, if there's a pitcher change, he goes to the bullpen and hangs out with those guys rather than coming back in. And it's just those little things that help bring the team together. And the Mets haven't always had that. I mean, recently we had Scherzer and Verlander, and that was difficult because it was like two egos constantly clashing with each other, and that really didn't help the vibe of the team. So I think having more players like him that are serial winners, like you say, that only is going to boost that confidence in the clubhouse and hopefully gets that first World Series since 1986.
Yeah. I think with the financial power that you have, and you mentioned that some of the signings down the years of Verlander, Scherzer, there's been kind of either missed opportunities or maybe ill-advised moves. Putting those two pitchers together, it was never ever going to end well. But you look at this season now, at the time we record, you're a game and a half back of the Phillies. You're well clear of Miami. They're 12 games back of you. How, would you say this season has gone, and where do you think it can go?
It's been a real Jekyll and Hyde season for us. We've had a great start, which is not very characteristic of the Mets. We had the usual June swoon, and June was a horrendous month to be a Mets fan. Not been helped by bullpen injuries and pitching arm injuries. On the one hand, you've got Lindor, you've got Alonso, you've got Soto, all hitting well. You've got the likes of Brandon Nimmo that's contributing to the team as well. He's hit a couple of grand slams in the last week. offensively, we've been fine, other than sort of odd streaks here and there. Pitching has just completely fallen apart. Kodo Senga's injured again. He's our main sort of ace. You've got Paul Blackburn and Tyler McGill, sorry, who are within the starting rotation, but they're out injured. You've got Frankie Montas, who we signed in the off season. He's 2 starts into his return from injury. Sean Manaya's out injured. And we've got so many bullpen arms coming and going. There was a pitcher who came into the game yesterday. It's the 35th pitcher we've used so far this season. So it's been a real merry-go-round with our pitching arms. The Yankees series that we've just played over the weekend, over the 3 games, 2 of the games were started by relievers. So it tells you kind of where we're at the moment. I know we've sort of, before the show, we looked ahead at the starting pitchers, and from a pitching perspective, it's a good time to play the Mets for the Orioles, just because if they can shut down the offensive side of this team, our pitching is not great right now. And I think the O's could take advantage of that. We don't seem to have a star-studded bullpen. Obviously, you've got your well-known players like Diaz, but they're not filling me with much confidence. We've got starting pitch. We've got Clay Holmes in the first game, who's joined us from the Yankees as a reliever. He's converted to a starter. He started the season quite well, but he's now fallen off. I think the number of games and the number of pitches he's thrown is starting to catch up with him. We've got David Peterson in game 2, who's my favorite of the starting rotation at the moment. He's a lefty, really solid, really dependable, but he's had 1 or 2 starts lately where the season's catching up with him a little bit. And then game 3 at the moment, it's TBC. It should be another bullpen game, but we've got rumors that Senga or Manaya are possibly coming back for this series. Maybe it's the one after when we play the Royals. So I don't know. It's really anyone's guess as to what kind of pitching you're going to see from the Mets, which one of the reasons I thought I'm a pitching guy myself. I love watching pitchers throw and the mind games behind all of it. And for me, it's one of the disappointments of watching the team right now is just seeing us really struggle with pitching when the Mets for years have been a side associated with quality pitching. It's difficult to watch. I realize the money's been spent elsewhere on the team. We have invested heavily into the pitching lab to try and salvage some of these players that we're signing, but we've not got much in the way of starters in our farm system. That's quite depleted in that area. We've got a couple of guys, Blade Tidwell, for example, who's come up recently. He's struggled in the majors, but he's fine down in AAA. So yeah, I think it's one of the areas that does need addressing in the side. But certainly for those O's in the coming games, it's something you can definitely take advantage of.
I'd like to agree with you on the taking advantage part. We've got Charlie Morton pitching game 3. I think we've got Brandon Young game 1. Toby Gargano game 2. Toby Gargano's fallen off a cliff since I think it was the Angels game on the road about 6 games ago. I think he's pitched 5 innings once. He got down in Oakland. He got hit all over the park. He's really struggled. He's a contact pitcher. He hasn't got the velocity. He's just lost all control. Charlie Morton, who a lot of people put on him where we are now, currently in the season, because of his performances in the first, his first kind of 6-7 starts were disastrous, and there's people talking about, do we just DFA him and cut him loose? He was on a $15 million 1-year contract. However, recently he's found his control and he's been lights out for us. You go back and look at the start of our season now, I never thought we'd be in a position where we go, actually Charlie Morton is our ace this season. Brandon Young is a guy who has come up and had to do a job. We've been depleted by injuries in the bullpen. we've got Kyle Bradish coming back from Tommy John. So he was out all last season. He is facing live batters down at the spring training complex in Florida, so he should be back. I think they're looking at late August for him. Grayson Rodriguez is being throwing live bullpen, so he's probably looking end of July, August. So it's kind of the tail of the tape is both teams have been absolutely destroyed by pitching, and that's what for us has affected us so badly. Obviously, we had Corbin Burns last year, an out-and-out ace. He was outstanding. Yep. We've made him a contract offer. The thing that I liked about it was he wasn't about the money. He took less money and went to Arizona because he wanted to be with his family. And, other than Diamondback fans, I don't think there was any other fans other than Orioles fans who were more like heartbroken for him with obviously what's going on with Tommy John. Mm. And we just never, I'd say we never it's a hard gap. It's a kind of almost impossible gap to fill, especially when you look at free agency last year, pitching wise. I've said it before. Two guys who were on free agency, Max Fried and Bueller, landed in our division with the Yankees and Red Sox respectively. And then Charlie Morton. So I think what Mike Elias in the front office did, kind of thought, we'll bring in Charlie Morton. Grayson Rodriguez was pitching in spring training and then went down. So he was going to be your opening day starter. He was going to be your number one guy. We had Albert Suarez, who was kind of a find from nowhere last year. He goes down injured. And, I think he's only just started throwing again. So we were in a position where you've got Zach Eflin then becomes your opening day starter, who ability-wise is a day 4, day 5 pitcher. Dean Kramer, day 4, day 5 pitcher is, and then Charlie Morton doesn't get going. Sagano was the one kind of shining light at the start of the season for us, kind of kept us in it, but we're just in that position now where we're just trying to get back to where we need to be come the deadline. As I said to you before off air, we had an excellent June, a winning June. We started June 7 games back. We've exited June 7.5 games back. We just haven't been helped with inter-division games. So hopefully we can carry on the way we're going. And it's going to be, I don't see it being a high-scoring series. We've just come back from a Brave series where I think it was 3-2, 6-3, and then it was a 2-1 game yesterday. So we haven't been lights out, but the bullpen has backed up the starting rotation massively. And like you said, we've had a couple of times where we've had a bullpen guy. We've had Keegan Aiken and we've had Andrew Kittredge, who have been like a spot starter, just an opener, just to try and help us out. But the bullpen have saved us this season.
That's always good to hear. I think ours has been less reliable, shall we say. But it varies from game to game. You'll see with the Mets, you can have the same guys do a couple of games within the series, and it's that Jekyll and Hyde again. It's just they'll be lights out in one game. They'll play the same team in the same series a couple of nights later, and then just be horrendous and have no control. I think I don't know where you stand on the injuries, but I think one of my biggest bugbears, this is baseball in general, I don't think it's a Mets thing per se, is this obsession with throwing the ball as hard as you can. It seems to be causing all of these injuries, and I go back to when I first started watching the Mets, and you had the likes of Bartolo Colon pitching for us when the guy had no heat whatsoever, but he's throwing in the low 90s, upper 80s, but he's got really great control. And that guy goes throughout most of his career with very little in the way of injuries. And I almost wonder whether baseball kind of needs to get back to that a little bit rather than obsessing over these radar speeds of, I can throw 100 miles an hour. Well, great. But if you need Tommy John in a couple of weeks' time, it's not really worth it. Would you say that's something you've noticed with the Orioles and their injuries?
I mean, Kyle Bradish, the one with Kyle Bradish, he went down with, obviously, I think it was forearm inflammation, and everybody, when you see that a pitcher's got on the IL, 10 days for a left or right forearm impingement, you're just thinking, this is only going to lead one way because you know what comes after the forearm. And so he went down injured, and then we got him back. I think he played 25 games. No, not even that. I can't remember to be exact, but we got him back. Kind of everyone was like, we know where this is going. Let's just pull him, curtail him, and then we ended up getting him back. He was pitching again, and then he goes down, and I was kind of thinking, like, you just delayed the inevitable. It was always going to be Tommy John that came back, UCL, done. He has the Tommy John. I was thankful with Kyle Bradders, though, that he hasn't had the internal brace fitted. Pitchers coming back from Tommy John, when they first come back, we've seen it with Felix Bautista this year. He's come back from Tommy John, missed all of last year. And early on in the season, he was struggling. He was getting saves, but he was struggling. He wasn't the same Felix Bautista. And it takes them a month or two to get back, and now Felix Bautista back to being, in my eyes, the best closer in baseball. You know, there's nobody throws a better slider than him. He's just, his splitter. He's just unreal. On the subject of injuries, I think there's a couple of things for it. The race to 3 digits. Everybody wants to throw a 4-seam fastball. On the inside corner at 100 miles an hour. You know, very few pitchers can do it consistently. Paul Skeens is one of them. And on the subject of Paul Skeens, we might just be witnessing like kind of a freak of nature here. You know, he's still very early into his MLB career, but he's outstanding. But I think that's an issue, trying to pitch, 3 figures every single ball. I think the other issue is these players that go from college or high school or college whenever they get drafted. And you look, I watched a lot of college baseball. I watched a lot of the College World Series. And in that, there is can't remember. He's down in a lot of people's mock drafts to go around about 22nd, 23rd. He pitched. He was 1 hit away from a perfect game. He gave up a hit in the 8th. Shouldn't have gave it up. His last pitch of that game, I think he pitched 109 pitches. I think it was clocked at 102 miles an hour. Mm. And he's done that consistently over that period of time. The issue is then when they join and they go down the farm and then at single A, double A, they start tinkering with them, and they're pitching less. They're not pitching often enough. They're pitching less innings. And I just don't think these guys are building up the strength in their elbows and forearms that is needed. That is something that I think that if there was studies into, there'd be a definite link. These guys are pitching 9 innings in college baseball, suffering no injuries, and then they're coming up. I understand that you go from playing X amount of games in college baseball and you're going into a 162 game season across 6 months. But there is a definite issue, and things have changed because you go back and we've been blessed at the Orioles to have some great pitchers, Hall of Fame, Jim Palmer, pitchers, opening, starting pitchers. You don't even need to go back too far. You go and pitch 400 innings a year. Now, aces are like, I want to come and help. Corbin Burns did last year. I want to come and help the team. At the end of the year, I want 200 innings pitched, and you used to have to grab, drag starters off the mound, and now I think there's a combination of things that have come together where there is this issue of these injuries that always happen. The Diamondbacks lost 3, I think, in a week or 10 days to Tommy John.
Yeah.
And who went? Cole Irvin went down for the Yankees. Again, that was the moment he had that sprain. And it didn't get announced, I think, until opening day, and he did it in spring training. The moment I saw what he'd done in spring training, he had the sprain, I was like, he's done. Corbin Burns, the same. When that happened, and then you saw Corbin Burns' post-game interview in the locker room, he was like, I just said my elbow was dead, it's a bit sore. I was thinking, that is you done, and, hopefully Corbin Burns comes back and he's all right, but you're right. There is an issue across the league with Tommy John and pitching injuries.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things we're definitely going to see addressed in the future. It can't go on. It can't sustain like this. I think the other team that springs to mind when you're talking about pitching injuries for me is the Dodgers. They seem to have like a 9 or a 10-man rotation just to cope with the fact that they've got so many injuries over the course of a season.
The Dodgers one is an interesting one because every pitcher that goes to the Dodgers always seems 9-10 innings away from Tommy John surgery. And it's kind of, I think, bordering on like workplace malpractice. I think they just grind these pitches into the ground. We mentioned, we talked about the Dodgers the other week on another episode and about teams' IL lists. I was like, can you even call the Dodgers an IL list? Because whoever goes down, they'll just go out and spend money and get another person in to fill the void. And yeah, the Dodgers is a weird one, but they just throw money at it. It's ridiculous how much money they've got, you know. And they've got Shohei Ohtani back now, and he's ramping up his work. You know, he pitched two innings the other night. They think they might try and work up to 5 or 6 innings in the bullpen this week. You know, but even then, I think he's had 2 Tommy Johns. Yeah, it just shows how it's when you look at it like that. You know, a pitcher goes down with 1 Tommy John, is he going to come back? When a pitcher goes down with 2, you're thinking, there's possibly no way back here. Shohei Ohtani's coming back, throwing more velocity. He's pitching better than ever in what we've seen, and you're thinking it is just a once in a lifetime generational talent.
Yeah, Ohtani's definitely, like you say, that generational talent. I was in Citi Field at the end of May. I managed to catch the final game of the Dodgers series. Saw Ohtani play that game. He wasn't pitching at that point, but just seeing him at plate, like, it's just one of those moments where it was like a real sort of, wow, I'm actually seeing him in person rather than on TV. Thankfully, he didn't have a good game, but still, just great stuff to watch him play. Without a doubt, he's going to be first round Hall of Famer, like several of the other names we've mentioned this evening.
Yeah, he is at first, and inevitably, you know, the contract he has at the Dodgers and how long he's planning on staying around and in the league, there will possibly be conversations about where does he rank, probably in the top 10 of baseball players all the time, because he's a potential Cy Young winner as a pitcher, and he's also an MVP winner at the plate. He's just extraordinary for a two-way player. But back onto the O's and the Mets. You know, we discussed how we think this series could go. Coming into this, who's hot for the Mets coming into this series? You know, we've had Brian O'Hearn was hot for us early on in the season. He's, you know, first time All-Star this year. He's cooled off a lot. Jackson Holliday had a good series in Atlanta. He was 4 for 5 yesterday, I think, or 4 for 4. He had a 2-run home run. You know, we have been very vocal about Jackson Holliday on this pod, and you know, he's another one who I think is a generational talent. He's still got a long way to go. This is technically his first full year, but obviously he didn't have. He lost his rookie eligibility because of the amount of games he played last year. So yeah, for you, who's hot coming into this series? Who needs to kind of step up? Who's been on the slide?
I think hot-wise, like I said earlier, Nimmo has had a couple of grand slams in the last week. He's on quite a good stretch at the moment. Alonso's hitting well at the moment as well. I feel that Lindor probably needs a good series. You know, he's just been selected as an All-Star, first-time All-Star as a Met. But he's been a little bit off his best lately, so I think that for him having a good series here would be key. Soto's just chipping away. He's doing his thing, so I'm not too concerned about him. I'd like one of our sort of younger Mets to step up a little bit. That would be nice. We've got Brett Beatty, Ronnie Mauricio, and Mark Vientos that sort of bounce around between the roles of DH, third base, and second base. I think we're in an interesting situation with these. They're sort of known as the baby Mets, and there's not enough places for all of them to stay. And You know, Beatty, I think he's 5th, if I remember correctly, on our home run list for the season, but he's not as popular amongst the fans. Ronnie Mauriceo's just come back from a horrific leg injury. He's quite popular, got quite a lot of power on his bat. He's one most likely to hit a home run. Mark Vientos had an amazing year last year, and he's just completely fallen off of it this year. But there's a good player in there. I think a lot of them, they're sort of this infield DH sort of hybrid. The Mets seem to like to platoon a lot of their positions. So I think one of them needs to have a good spark and sort of come alive. And to be honest, if we can just hit, I think we can carry through all the bullpen issues and come out the other side smiling. What about you and the O's?
It's weird because we're coming off of a road trip where we come back 4-2, dropped the series to the Rangers 2-1. But we were going up against Jacob deGrom. He's being lights off him, and then swept the Braves. There were some good performances in that Brave series. As I mentioned, Jackson Holliday, he's been moved to lead off. He's playing every day. The change for him is being one, Tony Mantelino coming in and Brandon Hyde getting fired, because Brandon Hyde didn't want to play him every day. He didn't want to play him against left-handed pitching. He can't hit lefties, but we were like, how is he going to improve if he's not facing these, at the plate in live games? Tony Mantelino came in today and said to Jackson Holliday, day one, you're my lead-off hitter, and you're also going to be the Orioles lead-off hitter for the next 5 years. That's given him a lot of faith and stability, knowing that, he's going to have a rest day. What he's got his position in the team. Kobe Mayo is a guy that a lot of people like. He came up last year, played, struggled, went back down. I felt he should have made the opening day roster. He didn't, and then he had some not very pleasant comments after not making the opening day roster. So he was down in Norfolk, but he's come up because Ryan Mountcastle went on the injured list. So he's one who now finally looks at home. His discipline at the plate is outstanding. His clutch hitting, he's had a couple of 2-out RBIs. He is being great. I think for us, it's just been a case of we've had so many players injured. Jordan Westberg has been outstanding since he come back, and for the Orioles to do well, Jordan Westberg needs to be playing well. Our record with Jordan Westberg and the team is unreal compared to how bad it is when he's out the team. Gunnar Henderson as well. Gunnar Henderson. He had a big hit in the Brave series, but that's what's been missing from him this year. But he didn't have a spring training. He went down injured in spring training. So all these kind of injuries we've had throughout the year, and it's kind of led to where we are now. But I'd like to see a big series from Kobe Mayo. One that definitely needs a big series is Cedric Mullins. He's not going to be an Oriole for much longer. He's going to get traded at the deadline. I'm a big fan of his, but he's had a massive slide. He had a great start to the season, but in recent months he's been poor. He's still the home run leader for the O's, which kind of, you think, how is he saying this about him? But I think his batting average is down to 2.13. His OPS is 715. It's up there, but it has been a disappointment, and I don't know for you, but
third bath.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about you, but we've had a couple of surprises this year. We've got Ramon Urias, who at third base, he's a Gold Glover. Not really being renowned for what he can do at the plate, but he's bats number 9 a lineup, but he's batting 256 with an OPS of 690, and then Ramon Laureano, obviously we got in the off season as a free agent, come in to kind of help us out with. We've struggled for years hitting lefty pitching. He was one of these, along with Tyler O'Neill, that came in, not solve all our problems, but he's going to help us out against lefty pitching, and he struggled early on. But I wouldn't be too uncomfortable in saying that Ramon Laureano is probably the Orioles MVP this year.
Okay.
So if these players that I mentioned can step, we know they can. You know, the amount of runs we've scored down the years with this core of the team, it could make for an interesting series. But we are also renowned to we'll blow away a team, and then the next, I think, Tampa Bay. We blew away Tampa Bay a couple of weeks ago, and then the next game we were one in and away from getting no-hitted. And that is the O's this season. Just the only thing we are consistent at is being inconsistent. But you know, we talked about it before we went live. We're coming up to trade deadlines, 23, 24 days away. All-Star break coming up. This is now we're going to start seeing the moves. 7.5 games back. At this moment in time, I don't think we're going to be interested in doing anything. I think we're going to be later on 4 or 5. What do you think the Mets are going to do going into that deadline? And I mean, you're only at 1.5 games back at the top of the division. You have, you know, you've mentioned Lindor, Soto. You have these players where you can go on and have a run. Do you need to go out and get that ace, another ace in the rotation to take you there?
Yeah, I think starting pitching is definitely something they're going to look at. I know Minaya and Senga are due to come back. But I think even then, if they go back into the rotation, you're still looking at a 4, maybe 5-man rotation, and Senga works best with a 6-man rotation. Is what he's used to from Japan. So I think there is still a need there. There's rumors in the Mets world that they're interested in trading Ronnie Mauricio for Keller over at the Pirates, which, whilst he's not an ace, I think, you know, like you talked about earlier, he's a dependable sort of 4th, 5th kind of starter.
Short-term rental, if you're going to take a run on it.
Yeah, I think with Keller as well, he's got 3 years left on his contract. So at least you're not getting a rental piece, which I think they seem quite reluctant to do. There's a few prospects in the farm that they could trade away if needs be. I think position-wise, there's still long-term questions about RDH. It's been, like I said before, it's been platooned quite heavily. Third baseman is another one where we've not really got anyone solid or MLB ready, I should say. So maybe an experienced third baseman if the right one's on the market. But I think other than that, the positions are kind of all right, really. There's enough outfielders that we can cover that for pretty much every game. Jesse Winker's due to come back and sort of fill the centre field void that we've had. So yeah, I think it's just pitching. But then with David Stearns in charge in the front office, he's shown many a time that he's prepared to go way out left wing with some of his signings, and it's things that you never would have seen coming. Like we've seen, you know, converting Clay Holmes and Griffin Canning from relievers into starters, and going out and getting guys who've got a +10 ERA and then throwing them in the pitching lab and seeing what happens. We end up with some really bizarre signings that make you go, huh? And then a couple of weeks later, they turn out to be like Cy Young contenders for a couple of games. So I think anything's possible with the Mets, but I'm not expecting any sort of Jeff Passan bombs at 3 a.m. that I'm going to wake up and think, oh my God, what on earth have we done there? The one player on the O's, I'm going to say I'd love to trade for. If you guys are willing to sell, you know, Jackson Holliday, I'd quite happily take him. Obviously, Gunnar Henderson, but I think with Francisco Lindor, we're kind of set at shortstop for a while. So, you know, if you guys want to sell, we'll gladly take it out of hands.
Jackson Holliday is under team control till 28, so he's absolutely not going anywhere. And that's the thing, when you get down to this deadline, you're looking at who haven't you got control over next year? Can you move them on and get someone in? You know, one player that I've kind of been high on to trade away is Ryan Mountcastle. He's a Gold Glove first baseman, but he had a bout of vertigo a year or two ago, and he hasn't been the same player since. But obviously he's injured now, and he hasn't been transferred onto the 60-day. He's still on the 15-day, but you know, they were looking at 2-3 months for him to get back from a hamstring, so no one's going to take him the trade deadline. But I think for us, it's like Cedric Mullins, Ryan O'Hearn is going to go. Ryan O'Hearn can go and be a DH for anyone. He can be a first baseman for anyone. He can be in the outfield. We've seen a bit of a slide from Ryan O'Hearn, and we saw it the other year when Ryan Mountcastle got injured. And it's when Ryan O'Hearn has to play every day on both sides, he does struggle. He is an out and out DH. But I think the other thing is the O's, going back, they don't even need to go, probably 20 years ago, the O's had a habit of kind of players that were heading into free agency in the off season. They would trade them away, get players in, and then go back and get them in the off season. So I don't know whether that's something they could try and do with Ryan O'Hearn, because wherever he lands, qualifying offers this year at around about 26 million. Will Ryan O'Hearn get more than a qualifying offer over a 2-3 year period? Is somebody going to give him 75, 80 million over 3 years? I don't know. So it's interesting. One thing that the O's do need to do, I don't know whether they're going to do it at the deadline, because the way it is going, if we are sellers, I don't think they're going to be bringing in definitely not going to be bringing in an ace in at the deadline, but they do need to start looking at that rotation for next year massively, because we've got looking at next year, as I said earlier on, we've got Grayson Rodriguez coming back this year, we've got Kyle Bradish coming back this year, and then Dean Kramer, I think he's going to go. You've got Tommy Susagano, who is a free agent in the offseason. He was on a 1-year deal. So I think he will probably go at the deadline. One that we will probably lose out of the bullpen if we are sellers, almost definitely, is Brian Baker. He's been outstanding as a reliever, but it just comes down to what do they want to put themselves in the best position possible going into next season, because the core of the side is there, the core of the lineup's there. They're just going to need, I don't even know whether to say an ace, because Kyle Bradish is going to be the ace. We saw how well he pitched last year when he was injured. Or the year before when we won 101 games. He's the main reason we won 101 games. So it's a case of seeing what we can get back for players. We aren't going to be doing it. Was it someone from Arizona Diamondbacks UK put a thing up on Twitter the other day about Felix Bautista? The Diamondbacks are interested in him, thinking he's the best closer in the big leagues. It's going to take a ridiculous package to get him. And if the O's have any thought of winning next year or the year after, they are not going to trade the closer. He's had his injury issues, but the O's aren't going to go back to what the O's used to do and kind of use the bullpen to see how to close and rotate closers. Felix Bautista is the best that there is, and there's no way he's going to get traded. Jackson Holliday's not going anywhere. However, Jackson Holliday being a Scott Boras client and being, under team control, a year after Gunnar and a few others, we had this discussion the other day in the WhatsApp. It's gonna be terribly sad to see Jackson Holliday not be in an Oriole uniform come 6 years. He's gonna end up in pinstripes or Dodgers blue and white, because he's that's the money that he's gonna get. Gunnar Henderson the same. We have Ryan Ripken on the other week, obviously family of baseball royalty of Cal Ripken Jr., and I was asking him about Ellie De La Cruz and Gunnar Henderson, who gets the bigger contract. I think Gunnar Henderson at the moment, he's probably looking at 700 million, and he's thinking, we've had the ownership change, but even then, with the increased finances and with him being a Scott Boras client, are we gonna? It's gonna be hard. Adley Rushman is probably the one that they might extend. However, Samuel Basallo coming up through the pipeline, he's going to be. We've used 8 catchers this year. I think the record was the Mariners with 11 catchers in a regular season. We're gonna get close to that. But
I was going to say on the catcher front, I was looking at Orioles sort of like news and scores and like your results and stuff before doing the pod. There's quite a few US sports outlets, like certainly within the last day or the last week or so, talking about should the O's trade Adley Rushman. What's your take on that?
Adley Rushman, he struggled since the All-Star break last year till about 6 weeks ago. He'd really struggled, and there was rumours going around a couple of things. I think it comes down to he injured his hand last season, and he played through. So this is his first stint on the IL in 4 years. By the way, he doesn't get injured. This is an oblique injury he's out with now. And Adley Rushman's rookie year that he had was a phenomenon. It was kind of a once in a lifetime thing. As a catcher, you look at Cal Raleigh, and there's a couple of catchers around the league that are doing big things, but to do it on a regular basis, year after year, like Cal Raleigh's he had a decent season last season. I think he's having an outstanding season this year. He's on pace for 60 home runs. Do I think he's going to do it next year and the year after? I don't think so. He could fall off towards the end of this year. But in terms of Adley Rushman, do I think they'll trade him away? They're not going to trade him away. Samuel Basayo's coming up. He's the number 10 prospect. And this kid is absolutely smashing it down at AAA. He's batting 253 with an OPS of 920. He's got 16 home runs from 57 games, 231 plate appearances. This kid, Samuel Basayo, everybody is high up on him. He would probably have been called up by now. He just lacks defensively at the plate, and there's been a lot of talk online and on X about Mike Elias. Why hasn't he brought him up? And with the amount of injuries we've had, I was vocal of him coming up a couple of weeks ago. But looking at it, as Bam Waylos was added to our medical taxi squad for the Brave series. He's going to hang around for the Mets and Marlins series. We're not going to see Basayo until late August, September. What they want to do is keep his rookie of the year eligibility for next year. He is probably going to be rookie of the year. He's that good. Rookie of the year next year, then you get the extra year with him. You get the extra draft pick. We had to have Gunnar Henderson. So there will come a time where there will be a discussion about Adley Rushman, whether he trading him or extending him. If Samuel Basayo comes up, he can also play first base. Samuel Basayo. I think Kobe Mayo is likely going to be our long-term first baseman. If Samuel Basayo comes up and smashes it as a catcher, he can also do DH. There might be a conversation to have, but that's, I think, 2 years away. Adley Rushman, team control, I think till 27. I think he's in his first year of arbitration this year, so I think he's got another 2 years of arbitration. So yeah, through 27 into 28. I just, I can't see it. And I was to say he's injured, oblique injury at the moment. So
yeah,
they originally said 10 days, but oblique. He could be 6 to 8 weeks, but I don't know. I like Adley Rushman. I think he's great, but he has struggled. But yeah. Gary Sanchez was a weird one for us. Obviously, got him from free agents. He'd obviously been at the Yankees. He'd struggled, awful at the start of the season, got injured. Then since he come back from his injury, he was lights out offensively. He's been poor defensively. There's a couple of missed tags and but yeah, then he's got in. We've struggled with injuries this year, and that is the story of the old season. And I know you have struggled with injuries, but ours has been poor. Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to cover?
I think it's going to be an exciting series. I'm looking forward to it. It's always nice to play AL opponents. It's nice to break out of the repetitive Death by Marlin series that we always seem to have. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this one. I quite like the O's. I'm not saying that because I'm on the pod. I do quite like the O's. So hopefully you guys can turn things around after you're done playing us. We'd quite like the wins, please. But no, I think it should be, like you said, both teams are in a sort of a weird situation with injuries and things going on, and I think it's going to make for an interesting series. I don't think it's going to be one way either way. I think it's going to be a close game throughout the series, and we should get some good baseball out of this. Are you going to be watching Thursday with the UK friendly start time?
So up until like the last couple of weeks, I'd watched every single game. I'd had an operation, so I was off work for a while, so I could stay up. I could basically do whatever I want to. You know what I mean, Thursday is it? Did you say sorry? Did you say yes? So Thursday is. Oh no, yeah, Thursday is 6:05, isn't it, UK time? Yeah, I'll be watching Thursday. Tuesday I will probably catch the first two innings because that's just 12:30. Yeah, I'll probably catch the first two. I will not see any of Wednesday. I'll just watch the condensed game once I get into work. But I mean, we had Nick on from LA Angels UK earlier on this season, and I couldn't imagine the difficulties of watching a West Coast team. And I didn't choose the O's because of East Coast. I chose them because I was fortunate enough to visit them while on a naval deployment out in America in 2010. So that's why I chose them. But I mean, you'd probably say I couldn't imagine following someone like. I mean, even the Dodgers, still, watching games at 2:30 in the morning. I'm getting up for work and the Dodger game's just finishing. I think that's the blessing that we've got being East Coast. I don't mind the Mets. I love New York as a city, and obviously anyone other than the Yankees. So you're on the right side of New York there. And as you say, Death by Marlins series that you have, we've got the Marlins. Straight after going into the All-Star break. So what's your schedule like after us going into the All-Star break?
We've got the Royals after you guys, so another tricky road series for us. I don't think either of those are going to be a walk in the park by any means. So difficult way into the All-Star break.
Yeah. So give me a prediction then for the series before you go.
I'm going to say 2-1 Mets over the 3 games. And I think Soto's going to hit at least 1 home run.
He's got. Yeah, he's got a chance. I mean, Oriole, it's not a small park, but they brought in the left field wall. I look forward to seeing, as I said earlier on, I look forward to seeing Soto play. I think we'll take the series 2-1. I think Sagano will find some control. If Sagano can find some control and Charlie Morton, I think the first game tomorrow night, Brandon Young, he's kind of being tasked with a difficult job. He does throw some decent stuff. And we are going to get more of a look at him, obviously, come post deadline. He is going to be that everyday 4th, 5th man. But I'm going to go 2-1. But before you go, Tom, obviously, I'd spoken to the Mets in the UK accountant earlier on when we were just starting off the podcast, and as the people involved there were great to us and hints and tips. So just a pass on a thank you from me and everybody else at O's, because there's quite a few of us who do this. Pass on a massive thank you from us. And then before you go, if you just want to let our listeners know where they can find you, because a lot of our listeners like listening to other baseball podcasts and that. And
yeah, so you can find me. I'm on X at Tom NYM UK. The account for Mets in the UK is at Mets in the UK. We have our podcast every Tuesday, Spotify, YouTube, all good podcast hosts. We try and keep our episodes to half an hour. So the idea is you can listen on your lunch break. If people want to come and check us out, great. We'll give you a follow back. And yeah, just, glad we could help out fellow MLB UK community guys with the pod. I've listened to a couple of the episodes, and I'm liking what I'm hearing. So you've got a subscriber in me, that's for sure.
Thank you very much. It is good to connect, and we are planning on doing a couple of events down in London. But, I'm going to be down in London for that MLB Europe event at the first weekend in August. I'm trying to sort of watch along at Passion, because we play who do we play? The high flying White Sox, I think, that weekend. So we're going to try and get down and do something. But yeah, Tom, thank you very much. I've been O's Across the Pond. He's been Tom Metz in the UK. Thank you very much.
That's it for this episode of O's Across the Pond, bringing Birdland to Europe one episode at a time. Be sure to subscribe, share and follow along as we keep the Orioles conversation going from this side of the Atlantic. Until next time, stay loud, stay proud and let's go O's!